Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and I am here with one of my favorite New Yorkers. You might know him as a fashion designer, a pundit on all things Drag Race and Housewives, but did you know that he's also a cabaret performer? Welcome back, Isaac Mizrahi.
Hi, how are you, darling? It's great to see you. I love your hair. Your hair is so kind of mussy and cute.
Isaac, dealing with this hair is truly my life's struggle.
Really cute. I'm really into it.
I adore you so much. I kind of feel like we're related.
Well, you know what? Rothschild, darling. We very well could be.
I mean, are we related? Like, I feel like we look alike, too.
I wish I looked like you. You're so cute.
I feel like if I were a man, we have the same hair.
Well, we kind of have the same hair. Yes.
And we kind of have the same face.
Yes, we do.
I don't know. I do feel like we need to meet in person eventually. There's a vibe happening.
Yes, we do. I mean, I got to tell you, you have very, very cute eyebrows, and I was sort of not blessed with eyebrows. I have a lot of hair on my head, and I have almost no hair on my body at all.
Wait, that's so funny that you just said that about the no hair on the body. I heard you. No, it was in your book. You were talking about how in your early dating in the 80s and the 90s, it was like through phone lines, and it was one of those things where you would like self-describe yourself. Like, okay, so for you would be like, hi, I'm Isaac. I don't have a lot of body hair. And it'd be like, beep.
Well, yeah. I mean, before Grindr, darling, isn't that what you do now? It's like you swipe right or left or something. I've never done that. I don't have a Grindr account, like, sadly, because I'm a married man for the past 10 years. And before that, I was a happily kind of monogamous person for the 10 years before that. So this whole Grindr thing has like totally escaped. And, but there used to be this sex line where you would like get on the phone and you would wait for people you'd be beeped from caller to caller. And you'd say like, hi, I'm looking for a top beep. You know, it's like, hi, I'm 6'1" and I weigh 180. Beep was like, they didn't want to hear about it. I'm brunette, beep. It's like they want exactly what they want, And so that's how and one night at like 3 a.m, I was beeping from number to number. I'm an insomniac. So I was like up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was on the phone and I was like, this person is very familiar. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. This is my friend, Mark Morris. It was like, so we, like out of all the, thousands or hundreds of callers or something like that, he was awake at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday and I was awake at 3 o'clock. And I was like, oh my God, Mark. And I said it and he was like, who is this? He was so terrified. It was one of the funniest things that has ever happened. And then I went into his studio the next day, and Mark has such a big mouth. He told his entire dance class, like the whole company knew of this incident by like the time I got there the next morning at 11. So funny.
Do you want to know a fun fact about those like dating sort of phone sex lines?
Tell me.
That is how Andy Cohen originally met John Benjamin Hickey.
Of course.
Swear
of
to
course.
God.
I believe you. That is so funny. I didn't know them. I know both of those gentlemen, and I did not know that fun fact about them. They'll have to
bring it up. Bring it up the next time.
I will totally bring that up.
Now, you have described yourself as a performer and a writer trapped in the body of a fashion designer. And I've now seen you perform at Cafe Carlisle and the City Winery. You have a slew of shows coming up at the end of August through Labor Day at 54 Below. So for people who just know you as a fashion designer, explain how you got into performing cabaret and singing.
Well, I started it long before I started making clothes. I went to Performing Arts High School. Before that, as like a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, I started doing female impersonations, I was obsessed with, of course, like all gay little children.
Did you ever do drag?
No, I never did drag, and I regret that. I should have gotten into drag, but I just never, it never occurred to me. I think, the family that I come from, I don't know what, of course, like homosexuality was completely persona non grata. Like you couldn't even have like, there was no such thing, right? So drag was like completely out of the question, completely. And it wasn't so much because, listen, I went on to be a flaming homosexual. Like I am like the sort of prototypical gay of a certain age, right? So I didn't have trouble with that, but it wasn't so much the verboten kind of forbidden thing about drag. It was more that I have this thing about what I think is pretty and what I think is not so pretty. And me in drag, it just wouldn't be pretty. It just, my face is it's just not going to ever be good in makeup. And my body was just never one that was made, even with corsetry, it's just never going to look too good, Whereas like, there are some people who are just, you can't believe how beautiful Violet Chachki is in drag. You just cannot believe. And so the thing is, I am like a very, very shallow queen, darling. It's like, if it's not gorgeous, why bother? You know what I'm saying? So like, there are other ways for me to look elegant or dapper or spiffy or funny. I like to wear a lot of jewelry. I like to wear like, a big flower on my lapel occasionally. I am known to do those things. But as far as like making myself into something that I don't think is very pretty,
Since we're on this topic, I actually do have a related question to this. And then I want to get back to how you actually started doing the cabaret show. But since we're talking about drag, like it is shocking to me that you were not a full-time judge on Drag Race.
It's shocking to me too. There was a moment when I may have been considered for such a thing, because I remember like tweeting out into the world, like way in the early beginnings of Drag Race, to RuPaul, because I know RuPaul for years. They're one of my, she and they are one of my best friends. I'm not exactly sure what pronoun they prefer at the moment, but I think it's probably he. I think he
goes by he. Yeah.
I've known him for 35, 40, like for such a long time. We've been friends and dear friends, he's one of the great people in the world. And I am so awestruck by the kind of recognition, like he created this whole thing. Forget about the industry side of it. Forget about like what he's probably raking in at the bar. Like, yeah, I'm so happy for him. But just the whole idea that he got people to understand the fabulous aspects of this craft of drag, that's his doing. Like that is nobody's doing but RuPaul made a complete industry happen in the past 20 years. It's unbelievable.
And also has now created a livelihood possibility for thousands of queens.
Thousands of people, hundreds, millions of kids adore and like absolutely faint over every word that comes out of all of these queens' mouths, and I am in awe of that. It's one of the great phenomena. It's one of the gifts of my life to watch this happen to my friend. And even if I didn't know him, I would be thrilled, because it's just a thrilling thing. And so like way in the early part, I tweeted to Ru, I said, how am I not judging this? And I meant as a guest judgeship, I didn't mean, but I think for a minute he said, oh, let's talk, we can totally talk. And there was this moment where I maybe was considered for a regular judgeship, but I made it, was, oh, no, I can just, because I think you have to spend a lot of time in LA, which of course I would have done had the terms been set, but it just never became more of a dialogue. But I would enter into that dialogue now because
we're so off topic, but it's totally fine. We're gonna get back to the cabaret origins.
It's a deep dive. So the thing is, I started as a female impersonator, right? I would do impersonations, which were spot on. Like it really sounded like Streisand. Before my voice changed, I could do Liza, I could do Shirley Bassey, I could do everybody, Eartha Kitt. I used to do these impersonations. And, I would get the record, like I would walk from my house to this place called Harnick's Happy House on Avenue J that sold records. And I would spend my allowance on the latest Streisand record. That's what I spent. I have like tons of these records from when I was a tiny kid. and I would do these impersonations, and it wasn't about drag. It was just more about the sound of their voice and the mannerisms, right? And you, dead ringer, you know. And then I went to performing arts high school in the acting department, and I sort of chickened out a little bit. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to earn a living in show business. You know, I thought it would be much easier for me since I knew people in the garment business, and my father had connections, etc. And we had sewing machines, and I learned to sew very quickly, and I was really good at it. You know, like, it's not like I was bad at it. So, and I was right. Like, the minute I left Parsons, I went from performing arts to Parsons. I kind of took this detour. And then immediately, like when I was in my third year at Parsons, I got a job at Perry Ellis, which was more money than a lot of people would have made, you know, in executive positions on Wall Street or something. You know, it was a great job. And so I was right about that, but I will regret that forever, that I did not go straight into show business, you know, because I see myself now going into show business.
You're defining shows business as a live performer.
Yeah, as a live performer who sings and tells stories or who acts in a different role. You know, I've been on a million TV shows, either as, you know, a fashion designer or as myself or as an interior designer or something related to that, you know. God knows I've been in a million movies and a million TV shows and, you know, Unzipped and et cetera, but it's all this kind of fashion backstory, right? I really want to make this big foray into show business, and I'm doing it. And I've been doing it for the past 20 years. And the thing is, like, at your age, you're going 20 years. I mean, like, really? Honey, I mean, I've been at this for quite some time, you know? And so, and even when I had my talk show those years ago, it was always about style related things. Even when Sarah Jessica Parker came on, or, you know, Natalie Portman came, whoever it was who came on, it was always, you know, it always kind of was about style or something, which I mean, I feel a little weird because people think that I care, and I don't really care. I don't care that much what people wear. You know, I don't care if you're wearing something that is not so fashionable. Something, I don't even know what fashion is. It's like, what's fashionable? Whatever looks good is fashionable now. I mean, it's not like the 50s where you have to wear like a tiny waist and a tight skirt to the bottom of the knee. You know, it's just
now it's more about styling, like putting different pieces together and tying it together with like a belt or a jacket, or it's not about the individual pieces.
Right. It's been about that since I can remember. It's been this kind of postmodern, shall we call it, like postmodern or like sort of post-historic or whatever. It's really just this kind of ungapachki. And I tell you what, like, I don't think people look that good now. Honestly, like, they look good, but they look, you know, there's no distinction between drag and like the Met Ball. It's all just this. And the thing is about the Met Ball, or about like, you know, the Oscars or something. It's nobody's saying it's fancy dress, but it's fancy dress. You know, if you go dressed like that, you're not wearing a fabulous, stylish gown. Either you're wearing something so incredibly boring, you know, or you're wearing something so crazy and like sex clown ridiculous, you know. And I wish there was an alternative, but there doesn't seem to be one. And I don't know if I mind that. I think that's a kind of evolution that I'm getting used to.
I want to go deep about your cabaret shows.
Let's do deep dives.
So I saw you at the City Winery and I was blown away. The storytelling, you have a phenomenal singing voice, like a shockingly great singing voice. And you sing standards, but you also reimagine pop songs. And let me say, Isaac, when you pulled out that version of Borderline.
I know, right? Talk about that.
Yeah, can we talk about that version of Borderline? Like, where did you get that? Did your band do that arrangement?
Yes, I did that arrangement with Ben. It was an idea that I had in the shower, darling. I'm not kidding you. I did that arrangement with Ben. I'm proud of that arrangement. And I really want to record that because there are a few arrangements that we have come up with together. And the thing is, I've been working with these musicians for a really long time. I had this off-Broadway show with one or two of the five musicians I work with now every night at this little theater in the Village. And that was in 2000. And before that, I was working with Ben at Joe's Pub and all kinds of clubs, right? So I've been working with Ben for a while. And now it's like, we sit in these rehearsal rooms and we formulate these really good arrangements of things. And I look at music in this kind of broad sense. I like a lot of different music, right? And so to me, Borderline is the same thing as some standard. It's a beautiful tune and it means a lot to me personally because I grew up listening to it and I love Madonna, and so once I thought like, what about slowing it down a lot and getting very into this like sort of funky, and then someone had a glockenspiel, someone did that top note glockenspiel thing and it was just so dirty. It sounded so like dirty. It's a little bit funky and dirty and I just love it,
It's so sexy.
Yes, I understand. It's like this kind of, we get this kind of, this kind of slant and a kind of a harmonic thing. Also, it's new chords that we added to it. I mean, I just think it's fabulous. And all those amazing solos. That's one of the numbers where everybody solos, right? I love that. And I'm actually working now on a version of, that Billie Eilish tune called Everything I Wanted.
Yes.
That. So we're working on a kind of a version of that. And we're kind of trying to reimagine that, in that same kind of way.
I have always thought of you, like you and Joan Rivers, as the quintessential New Yorkers. I want to hear the story of your apartment because you have achieved the real estate dream.
I know.
For any New Yorker in this city, which is to combine multiple apartments on the same floor.
I mean, I have to tell you, and by the way, like other New Yorkers who do that are like rich. I could never afford this unless this happened, which is that I bought this little 1-bedroom apartment at this incredible building in the Village on 12th Street. It's one of the 3 kind of buildings of that sort in the Village at all, that was built before World War II or between the wars in the 1920s, and it's this beautiful, solid old place. And I just love it so much.
What year did you buy that apartment?
I bought that apartment, I would say probably in like 1994 or something, or 1992.
Okay.
Something
do you remember
very, very
what you
early
paid?
On. So little. And I remember
you paid like $10,000. You don't have to be embarrassed.
No. I paid like $150,000 for it. That's how much I paid for it. I mean, it was this beautiful 1-bedroom with this corner terrace. Like the whole thing was, wraparound terrace for the corner, right? It was something else. It was a 1-bedroom anyway. And then about, I'd say 7 or 8 years later, I bought the studio down the hall for like next to nothing. And it was just because I thought, it would be great to have a place to go as a little study, and just kind of maybe write stuff because I was starting to write this thing. And I asked the doorman, I said, what do you think? He was like, I'll get in touch with that guy. Here's his phone number. Ask him. Because it was this doctor and he sold me this apartment. All I had to do was ask, for nothing, for like $75,000. I bought this studio apartment down the hall. It doesn't have a great view, but it has a rear windowy kind of view, right? So now I had these 2 apartments, and in between was this 2-bedroom apartment and inhabited by these very nice people. And first, he died, the guy died, right? And it was like, okay, and there I was like sort of thinking like, and then the lady, I was very happy. She was such a lovely person. Like I loved having her as my neighbor, but then she died, and it was like, oh no, right? And so then I kind of waited around and then I kind of got the apartment in between and then I put them all together. And now it is this like fantastic apartment that has these unbelievable terraces. Really, the terraces are so great, The view is really divine. It's a southwest view, southwest exposure, and it's on quite a high floor. And so it has very divine views. And it's these beautiful it has three fireplaces. It's really something. And I don't I know I don't deserve this place. I do deserve it because I've been living there since then, since like 1992. What's that? Almost 30 years, right?
It's the New York dream.
It is. It is the New York dream.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to RuPaul. So I know you've been friends with him for decades. How did you first meet RuPaul? And I know you're longtime friends with Sarah Jessica Parker. How did you meet both of them?
Well, I have to talk. Let's talk about RuPaul because I met I can't remember. I think I probably met RuPaul like out, when I was a kid, because I used to go out. We're roughly the same age. I think we're almost exactly the same age, right? I think Ru is turning 60, maybe. I don't want to put ages to anybody, but I met him probably like the Pyramid Club or something, or Area, or one of those clubs, Studio 54 or something. And, and we loved each other immediately. And she was quoted as saying something hilarious like, when I first heard of Isaac Mizrahi entered my consciousness more than meeting Isaac Mizrahi. And it's such a funny, because that's what happened to me with Ru. Like RuPaul entered my consciousness as a phenomenon on Earth. And I mean that. And, I've known him for so long. And I remember back in the day, we worked together so many times. And so as for meeting her, though, I think I probably met her out and about, like in the New York kind of nightlife scene. I think it was probably the Pyramid Club or something, or the Boy Bar, or one of those places, where she was on the bar singing and going crazy in a leotard, in a giant wig.
Who else were you hanging out with at that time? Like, did you meet Lady Bunny that way?
I know Lady Bunny even out of drag, because Lady Bunny out of drag, you would never recognize her. But the other person whom I've known literally even longer than Ru is John Epperson, also known as Lipsinka. Darling, I met John Epperson when I was like 15 years old or something. When I went to Performing Arts High School, there was a big dance department there, a big ballet dance department and modern dance department. And one of my best friends was in the Corps de Ballet, Susie Goldman. She was in the Corps de Ballet at ABT already at like 15 or 16 years old. And John Epperson, also known as Lipsinka, used to play I swear to God, they play the piano. He is a brilliant pianist. I don't know if you know this. And there was John every day in class, like playing piano for like class. No kidding. He plays like huge reductions of like Swan Lake. He's amazing. And so that's when I met John. And I remember going to see John's shows before he discovered Lipsinka. He did like these kind of shows by himself where he would accompany himself on the piano at like clubs that you would never even think or hear. They're so in the past that no one will ever remember, like the Red Parrot. So you'll never even hear of the Red Parrot. It was a club called the Red Parrot. And I remember going to see John Epperson do his show with Susie, and we couldn't have been older than 15 or 16 years old, and so like, that's how I'm from here. So I somehow, when you're from New York City, you just end up knowing all of these crazy, beautiful artists, we're very lucky that way.
You write a lot about your friendship with Sandra Bernhard, who I absolutely love, another quintessential New Yorker.
Who doesn't love Sandra?
There's this story, you write about the time that you took off her pants. You took her pants off on 8th Avenue. She
took her panties off on 8th because it was very early on in the thong thing. Like now everybody wears a thong to to sleep. Okay. But when they first started making thongs, people were like, really, this thing goes up my really? I'm supposed to, right? It wasn't sophisticated. Like you could feel that thing, And so I remember I did this kind of chiffon pantsuit, and Sandy wore it one night to some event, and we went to dinner before. And she was like, honey, I am not going to make it. I can't do this. Like she was at dinner and she was like, I can't, this thing is going up my coos and it is really bugging me and I don't know what to do about it. So we left the restaurant and we're screaming, laughing, and we made this ring. We made a circle around her. It was me and a few people that were around Sandra. There was a girl called Cheryl and there was a guy called, I forgot, it was a bunch of us. And we made the circle around her and she took off in the high heels on 8th Avenue, right, in Chelsea. She took her pants off, she took her panties off and threw them into traffic. I remember this. She kind of did that, around her. She did that and she threw them into and she put her pants back on, and no one ever knew, no one really knew that she was not wearing panties, but her pants were completely sheer. And we went out to this gala dinner, and it was hilarious,
Did you ever hang out with her during the time when she was close with Madonna? Like, did the three of you ever
Absolutely.
go out?
Yes, so many times. Absolutely.
Tell me.
I'll tell you, it was like an entourage that Madonna had around her at the time. And I actually kind of secretly, I was a little jealous of Madonna because Sandra and I were such close friends. And I saw this whole thing that was happening with Madonna. And I was like, wait a minute, now where do I fit in here? Mm-hmm. And I tried a little bit and it didn't really work that much. I mean, I went to Madonna's house a few times for parties and things, and we had dinners out and we went to fabulous. I mean, there was one night we went to the Gaiety Burlesque together, this kind of gay strip place on Times Square. Mm-hmm. And, there were several nights out. I met her in Paris a few times and, with Jean-Paul Gaultier, and, it was a whole thing about Madonna. But in the end, I would still love to see Madonna. I think she's one of the great artists of all times, but also with Sandra, we keep in touch closely now, not nearly as closely as we used to, but of late we've been in touch. We call each other here and there because, she's someone I think about. We almost had a kid together, and I regret that. I regret not having a kid with Sandra.
You almost had a kid with Sandra.
Well, we were thinking about it. We were talking about it. And
is this before Sicily?
Yes, way before Sicily. Absolutely. Sandra had Sicily when she was like 48 or something like that, or 45, right?
Maybe 40.
Maybe 40. Maybe it was 40.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we were talking about it for a year, and I decided I just couldn't be a father, and I regret it in a way. Like if there was ever a person to have a baby with, it would be Sandra, or a child or a person with, it would be Sandra. But
why specifically?
Because I love her so much, and even when I don't like her, I still love her. Doesn't matter. Wow. I trust her. I trust her explicitly. She can do no wrong. I mean, even when she does little wrong, annoying things, I still adore her,
What was your first impression of Madonna when you first laid eyes on her?
As a person that I was talking to, rather than as a performer, I was scared, probably. I mean, I was probably scared. And when you're scared and something like that is, you end up becoming sort of brave in the face of it. You get gallant and sort of brave and maybe a little bit fresh, And it was probably through Sandra that we first met, because Sandra and Madonna were very, very good friends, and I was also I was a little bit like, I was a little bit protective of Sandra too, because Sandra and I were really, really tight. I mean, we're like family. I feel like Sandra's part of my really part of my family. And so I was like a little afraid because I wasn't sure what Madonna was up to with Sandra, because I know that Madonna is, pansexual. She likes to sleep with a lot of different people. And I guess I couldn't tell what was going on between them. I couldn't tell if they were having an affair or whether Madonna was after Sandra's girlfriend, who was beautiful, this girl called Ingrid, very, very beautiful young woman.
Can I say something about Ingrid Casares?
Yeah.
So I recently had Sandra on this show, and we talked all about this. I mean, I didn't bring up Ingrid, but she talked about her falling out with Madonna, and it made some headlines, and Ingrid wound up tweeting about it, saying she basically is taking Madonna's side because they are still very good friends, saying Sandra was pissed that she wasn't included in the sex book. That's
not true. No, the truth is Sandra was betrayed because Madonna had an affair with Ingrid. That's what it was. It wasn't at all. Sandra didn't care less about that. None of us really thought much of that book. That book was like, a little bit forced, a little bit, contrived, as far as I can tell. Who would care about that? I don't think Madonna would ever consider putting Sandra in that book, and Sandra would never want to be in that book. I think the truth was that, she and Ingrid, Madonna and Ingrid had a thing, and Ingrid was dating Sandra at the time, and that's what hurt Sandra, not the book. I'll tell you why, because I think Madonna has a different idea of what it means to have sex with somebody, what it means to be in a relationship with somebody. I don't think she thought she was doing anything terrible. I think she was just responding to a kind of an erotic, and also, there's Ingrid, who was probably kind of, like goading the whole thing on a little bit. It could be, that's my feeling of it, right? I think Ingrid kind of used Sandra a little bit to get in with Madonna. I remember one morning being on the phone with Sandra, and Sandra was in tears, and I was like, darling, what's the matter? And she said, well, there's Ingrid up in Madonna's place on Central Park West. And I was like, well, that's no. She's like, no, I asked her not to go, and she just went,
And this is her girlfriend? They were in a relationship?
They were tight girlfriends, like practically living together, if not living together, And so that's what that was about. And, at the time, Ingrid was running a club in Miami that, I don't know if she's running that club, but she was really ambitious about that club, and to get Madonna to that club and to get Sandra to that club was a very big, important thing for Ingrid, And so I don't know, like, to me, it was all about the crazy betrayal of Ingrid, not anything else. Ingrid would do anything to get Madonna to the club and to get into Madonna's bed. And that's what she did. She just did that, and she used Sandra to do that. And that's why Sandra felt hurt, and not because of a sex book. Trust me.
Wow. Okay, let's move on. All right, pick your lane here. I want to get your thoughts. I'm going to give you, which road do you want to go down? We're going to go down both, but I'm going to let you, I don't know how to transition into this. So I'm going to let you pick the topic.
Tell me.
Because we're going to talk about Unzipped, because we didn't talk about that in our first interview, and I have some questions about it. Do you want to first talk about Unzipped, or do you first want to talk about and really go deep on And Just Like That?
Let's talk about And Just Like That.
I mean, they're filming the third season as we speak. John Corbett is back. Aiden is back already in that jacket. I mean, give me your thoughts on last season.
I have to say, I was obsessed with it. Were you?
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
And I couldn't believe how much bad press it got. It got a lot of bad press. Like, it wasn't just people not liking it. It was people going out of their way to write long articles about how terrible it was with pictures, right? And was it? No. But was it also something I was completely obsessed with? Yes. And I'm so excited because I can't wait, And I have to say, there's something classic about this story, about the story of these women in New York City. I actually started watching the full Sex and the City again, because I never did that. I mean, I watched it in situation. I'm binging. I'm in the middle of season 4, and it's so good.
3 and 4 are the best.
3 and 4 are the highlight. And I have to tell you something. It's also bad. It's also bad in the same way And Just Like That is bad. So I'm not sure why people were expecting Just Like That to be, somehow this kind of pinnacle of cultural and intellectual stimulation or something. It's just, I have to say, I wasn't expecting to miss Kim. Because
really?
Kim did a great job. Kim did such a great job those years, right? Her character was so two-dimensional. It was always on her back, always screaming, always giving blowjobs, always on her knees. And she did the best. I mean, she did a great job she made that into something, but it's really written about this deep, this so shallow, that Samantha character.
Eventually she does grow. The cancer storyline, they do enrich.
Yeah, eventually, but most through season 4 so far. I've been watching all of season 4, and I thought, it'll be a relief not to have to kind of default to someone screaming on her back or, from behind or something for 20 minutes of the show, but I actually miss it. I miss it. I don't know. I would wish, and I know at the end, they're going to do a scene. There's going to be a scene between the two of them. They're just playing us.
Were you happy with how the way they did the fashion callbacks, bringing back the Heidi dress, when they literally, did you watch the documentary?
No, I have to watch it. I was so thrilled that she had my little sweater, that sweater with the C on it. She had that with her it was on her bed, and then it was on her bed. It was always in the background.
Wait, you designed that?
The little, the kind of camel's hair sweater with the C on it, the turquoise colored C.
That was one of your pieces?
Yeah, I made that for her, for Carrie. She didn't wear it, but it was in her bed that morning when she woke up after Big died. And there she was in her bed with the sweater on the pillow, which I thought was adorable. And there it was in the background of another scene. Oh, it's a camel's hair sweater that I made for her because I made one for myself with a big red eye on it. And she saw it and she was like, I need one with a C for Carrie. And I was like, done, So I commissioned this wonderful knitter called Nancy that I worked with for years. And Nancy knit her this beautiful sweater with a big giant, C made in turquoise as opposed to red. She liked turquoise better. So
I love. You've talked about how inspiration is an illusion and the illusion of the front row at fashion shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it's an illusion. It's just that it's like a creation of publicists who make a lot of phone calls. I was thinking about that too, about the Oscars, right? Like the red carpet and dresses and everything, and it's like. Mm-hmm. It's like a jockeying of stylists and agents and, people making deals,
Well, people are paid.
And in the old days, and people are paid to wear dresses too. People are under contract to wear certain dresses on the red carpet to the Oscars and the Golden Globes. But in the old days, that wasn't the case, And people would show up to the fashion show, like Robert De Niro would just come, or Madonna would just come to the show, or Liza, or any of those people who came to my shows regularly because they liked it and it was fun and they liked to see with the clothes and there was a real interest, Like, I'm not kidding. There are some actresses still who really just understand clothes and who go to shows because they need to go to shows because they just like it and they dress themselves but fewer and fewer. Used to be like if you had Ellen Barkin, I don't know why she came into my brain because she was really smart about clothes, Ellen. Like she looked at clothes. She used to come to my shows and or Sharon Stone. Sharon Stone used to come to my clothes and write me little notes like critiquing, that shoe you showed with, and I'd be like, excuse me, when did this it was hilarious, because people like Sharon dressed herself a lot, and she still knows a good dress. Sharon Stone, she knows a good dress. Sarah Jessica, right? Like she used to have to go to shows because she understood what she was looking at and she knew how to dress herself. And, like a lot of times she would credit the fabulous, I can't think of her name, the stylist that she worked with all those years and still does, Patricia. I can't think of people's names, like the synapses don't close as quick.
Patricia Field?
Patricia Fields, yeah. Who was one of the great geniuses of styling history.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
She styled all Sex in the City.
That's right. But Sarah Jessica got it. She kind of knew, right? There were those girls who just knew all about what was chic, just in their personal lives. Selma Blair is another one. I'm just trying to think of like these icons who I used to love watching.
So
right?
when did it change and why?
It changed slowly over the course of years. Who was also so chic was Janet Jackson. I mean, Janet was such a chic girl, right? And then, the stylists took over and good for them. It's like, it just became about these relationships that women had with their stylists and men and who they trusted. And they knew they were getting this incredible service, And I don't know how it happened. Over the course of about 15 years, it happened.
I know you're a huge Housewives fan. And
I am.
It's funny to me how the Housewives are still they're still trying to pretend that it is a scene today. Like you see Kyle Richards, the fashion show. I mean, early in New York with like Jill Zarin. Oh, it has to be in the front seat, front row of the fashion show.
Jill Zarin, yeah. Well, I love Jill, by the way.
Well, you famously have said Jill Zarin is your number one pick to return.
I do, because I hope she returns. That would be great. I just like Jill,
I love her too. One of my favorite projects of yours was your Oxygen show.
Yeah,
now,
right.
This show was ahead of its time. First of all, I don't think people realize it was actually on your show where Rosie got that initial haircut that was a big controversy at the time. It was a big controversy. Yes. That was on your show. And you're laughing as she getting her haircut.
Right. Well, because she said, make me flock of seagulls. And so I got this incredible hairdresser who I knew could do exactly that. And he did that. And people didn't like it so much. I thought it was super chic because that's what she wanted, Rosie wanted to look like that, and we did it, and she was very happy. And the episode was so great because it was maybe a month or two after Columbine, remember? And like she was getting her hair cut and talking about how depressed she was about Columbine, how she couldn't get up in the morning, And I thought it was such an incredible juxtaposition. It was like this kind of pop talk show where you have this pop icon talking about something so grave and so kind of like, I thought it was one of the great episodes. We had a few fantastic episodes, and that was one of them.
All right, so now where should I position myself? I want to stay out of the way. I don't want to be, okay, nervous. You look so cute already, by the way. Sorry.
You like it?
Yeah.
All right.
Now, do you have a problem with looking cute? You want to look cute,
of course
right?
I want to look
just
cute.
checking, because some people want to look, aggressively ugly.
No, not me, no.
Okay, good.
So, by the way, of all the most unboring things in the world, right? I mean, like making someone who's already cute look terrible like that, that is not boring. That is nothing if it's not boring.
And I thought the idea was very ahead of its time, which was to actually engage in something else that would kind of take this person, like, with Natalie Portman, right? Washing my dog, Harry. We were washing the dog, and she opens up a lot because she's doing something. And she goes, yeah, my childhood, we're talking about Yale and how she got into Yale. I mean, it was really a great episode,
Like, I remember, I'm a huge Janine Garofalo fan. I remember you were playing ping pong with her. You played pool with Lily Taylor. Now, this is why I say it's ahead of its time. Is this not exactly what Jimmy Fallon is doing on The Tonight Show?
It could be, yeah. Not merely that, but also the set was the set, which was done with no money, and it was so influential. It was just this white cyc with like a floating couch and some flowers and a piano. That was the set. And it was beautiful, and people did giant white sets after that. A lot of people did these big white sets.
That was the greatest show.
Yeah.
It was on, was it on Oxygen?
It was on Oxygen for 3 years or more. And then it was on the Style Network for a couple of years. And then it kind of, they wanted me to do more makeovers. And I did one season where I did a lot of makeovers and I hated it. And I kept saying, I don't want to do makeovers. I hate makeovers. And then I just stopped.
Tell me the story, I want to hear the long version of how you met your husband walking your dog.
Well, I was very scared of men for the first 10 years coming out in the 80s. And also it coincided with this big mystery disease called AIDS, right? And so it was enough to shut anybody down. For those 10 years, I had as many lovers as I can count on both hands, right? But then somehow, when I broke up with this guy that I was dating for a long time called Douglas, or 3 years. We were only together 3 years. But when I broke up with him, I started sleeping with just everybody, And it was this time when finally we understood that safe sex was actually safe. And we understood that, condoms were great and you could do stuff, right? So I started just having a lot of sex at that time. And I was walking down the street and I noticed this madly attractive guy from not across 13th Street, but across 5th Avenue. He's that cute, right? And, we passed each other and that was that. And then I was on 13th Street and he came running down the block, hey, he got my attention. He was like, oh, you're that designer. And I was like, yes, finally somebody stopping me on the street, some gorgeous creature stopping me on the street after, all these people saying, hey, here's my card, I make shoes, we should make shoes together. It's really, right? Finally, somebody who was kind of like this gorgeous person, right? And so we walked around the block. I was walking my dog and I was wearing a suit with flip-flops. I remember exactly what I was wearing. And this gray suit, I had just come from my mom's lawyer. She was selling her house and I was very late and I was very nervous. And I just ran out of the house with my dog and Arnold followed me and we were talking and we walked around the block. This is even before cell phones. Okay, darling. And I said, oh, I'd love to get your phone number, but I don't have a pen, right? In those days, you had to get a pen and piece of paper to write down someone's. I said, oh, why don't you come upstairs? So he came upstairs and we completely just it was this moment, right? Not to be too vulgar, but it was like a hookup, And then it's we just discovered that I discovered that he was maybe the funniest person who ever lived, you know? And it was a kind of a crazy jackpot and so we started dating and we fell in love. And then he moved in very quickly, and that was a mistake. And then 9/11 happened and it was difficult. So we broke up. And then 10 years went by or something, or a long time. We got together. We met each other on, I'm not kidding, this happened on June 21st, 2001. That's when we met, okay? And then he came back to New York, I would say, in like 2007 or something. He went to live in Santa Fe, and he got a job there, and that was that. And then he came back, you know? We started communicating, we found each other. And this is before the internet. It was hard to like locate people. A friend of mine did a little recognizance and he found his phone number. And
yeah, like, didn't you hire a private private detective?
No. I tasked anyone I knew who was at all like, you know, tech savvy on the internet, like, and one of my dear friends found his phone number in Santa Fe, you know, and that's how we came back together. And so we started talking, and he made these little trips. And we saw each other, and it was fabulous seeing each other again. And then he decided he was going to move back to New York because the job was petering out, and he decided he was going to move back. And his family's here, so you know, that was a good thing. It was a really good thing.
Great.
And that was in 2007, I think. 6 years later, we got back together.
So something we didn't talk about the first go around was Unzipped. Now, this was a documentary made in the mid-90s about you in the fashion business, surrounded by all of these glamour supermodels. And this was also a time where they were not making documentaries about fashion or fashion designers. So I'm curious, like, how is it to film, and what do you think it captures best?
It didn't feel like we had any kind of true intentions with that thing. You know, there were so many things going on, and it just got filmed, and it was great. And we who made it, Nina Santisi and Douglas Keeve and I, really killed ourselves over it, and it shows. And it was very, very innovative, and I love it. And also, I hope it is not the thing that is the only thing that I'm remembered for in my career. It might just be the best thing I will ever make, you know? I hope it's not, because it was so unintentional is what I mean. It was so unintentional. There were just cameras going, and it was awkward and weird. And it was my boyfriend. He was my boyfriend at the time. And I felt like it was invasive. And I wasn't, like, I never thought it would reach this kind of, and then, you know, in the cutting of it, which was really difficult because Douglas is not the most functional thing in the world, you know.
He was your boyfriend at the time.
Yes. And Nina, who was the main producer on that thing, she was very insistent, but also, you know, she had ideas about what she wanted from it, and we fought a lot, and everybody fought a lot, you know. It wasn't the nicest time after, and me and Douglas ended up breaking up over it, you know, or we would have broken up anyway. So, you know, and then forever and ever, you're asking yourself, like, what came first, you know, Douglas's necessity to make Unzipped or his feelings for me, you know, like, you always under that. And also my friendship with Nina, like, what came first for her? Did she give a damn about me, or was she so intent on making this thing? And, you know, because everybody gets very territorial about whose idea it was and who did it and who did that. And it's just not that, and none of that is that interesting. It's a beautiful movie, and it created a great deal of havoc in my life. And I wasn't expecting it to. I really wasn't, you know, but I have a great fondness for it. I can't watch it without crying, you know. And you have some incredible portraits of Naomi and Linda and Christy and Veronica and all my favorite supermodels of the moment. And it was a different time. You know, you didn't pay for publicity. You didn't pay to have, you know, superstars attend your show, right? And so when you see like Liza and Roseanne and Richard Gere and, you know, Robert De Niro at the show, they came because they really it was a scene. It was an actual real scene, as opposed to, you know, what they put together now. It's all publicists who put this stuff together. And that's fine, I guess, you know, but this was a real scene. It was a real scene. And I think it was a precursor to a lot of reality TV.
Oh yeah. I mean, you talked about how you talk about how the hardest part of one of the most difficult pieces was being the subject and still maintaining any sort of objectivity, but you were able to see that being self-deprecating and having a deprecating vision of yourself is actually a positive thing, being the butt of a good joke.
Yes. Well, I must tell you, here is the truth. It was difficult being the subject and the object, right? But even more, it was difficult making the decision not to have a producerial credit on that movie. I made a conscious decision not to take, produced by Isaac Mizrahi. Didn't happen. And that I kind of regret, but I feel like the reason it was received the way it was because people thought that I was being aimed a little bit at. I wasn't doing it myself. Someone else was doing it to me. Mm-hmm. Now, you'll know I'm like way too smart to ever let something like that. I mean, come on, really? But somehow the fact that because I remember watching this Martin Scorsese documentary about Armani, and Armani was one of the producers. And I thought, ew, you're producing your own. But of course we do. We're all born with these horns that we toot, So, yeah.
The Scorsese thing, it reminds me how in Truth or Dare, it seemed like Madonna did let the camera catch her in moments. I'm wondering, what do you think of her writing and directing her own biopic?
I didn't know that was happening. I did not know that was happening. I just love that you know all this stuff. It's hilarious to me.
How do you not know that?
Someone just has to have the free reign, the money, the position, the kind of the power to just do it. Let some part of posterity be her story, because there's so many stories about her. I think she deserves her own story.
This is so much fun. I can't thank you enough. Everyone, tickets are on sale now for Isaac's shows at 54 Below, the end of August through Labor Day. I will see you there. Follow JessX NYC on Instagram. You can watch video of this interview with Isaac on YouTube. And Isaac and I will see you soon.
Mwah, thank you.
This was so great. Thanks a lot.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.